Would you like to know how to be happy? Well, the answer, believe it or not, is known. You may already know it. It took one of the most brilliant minds ever to appear on the earth to come up with the answer. His name was John Stuart Mill, who lived from 1806 to 1873, became an outstanding philosopher and economist. He's believed to have had perhaps the highest IQ of any person who has ever lived. So unless you think are smarter, pay attention. John Stuart Mill said, "Those only are happy who have their minds fixed on some object other than their own happiness, on the happiness of others, on the improvement of mankind, even on some art or pursuit followed not as a means but as itself an ideal end. Aiming thus at something else, they find happiness." The definition is so excellent, and people so often seem to be confused as to what happiness is all about. By the way, I wonder why that isn't taught in school. I believe it's safe to say that not one person in 5,000 could give you an intelligent definition of what true happiness is all about. We must have our minds fixed on something other than happiness in order to find it. If we seek it directly, it will elude us forever. People say, "I want to be happy," as though it's something that can be done to them whether they do anything about it or not. Such people can never know happiness until they break out of the tiny world of themselves. Those only are happy who have their minds fixed on some object other than their own happiness. Therein lies the secret. The happiest people are usually the busiest people, almost always those whose business consists of serving others in some way by losing themselves in what they're doing and where they're going. Happiness quietly joins them and becomes a part of them. The miserable, unhappy people who cause such misery and unhappiness to others are the self-centered people. People who worry constantly about what they're getting out of it rather than what they're giving. And the world is chuck-a-bang full of them. Unfortunately, we see their harried, unhappy, furtive, ferret-like faces everywhere, pushing their grasping hands extended. They fear life. They fear death. They're the pitiful caricatures of humanity, and they pay a terrible price for their ignorance. All right, no more mystery then, as to what happiness is all about. If you're not happy, it's because you're not meeting John Stuart Mill's simple directions and definition. If you do qualify, you're a happy person. The thing I like about the definition, other than the fact that it's the best I've ever found, is that it places responsibility for happiness directly where it belongs. I was staying at a resort hotel on Mackinac Island in northern Michigan. One evening after dinner, I settle myself comfortably in a chair on the porch that runs the entire length of the old frame hotel. Supposedly, it's the longest porch in the world, just to relax and enjoy the delightful evening. There was a light breeze and a good moon. The lake was beautiful, and the lights of the passing ships could be seen. The evergreens stood out clearly in the moonlight, and it was altogether one of those really great times. There are no automobiles on Mackinac Island. All the transportation is done with horses, and they naturally lend their own unique flavoring to the island's atmosphere. I found it charming and a lot less irritating than the noise and fumes of cars, taxis, and trucks. But what made me laugh, of course, was that in the midst of all that beauty, on one of the most beautiful evenings of the year, in so romantic and charming a setting, the only thing a young couple noticed that was worth mentioning was the faint odor of horses. They looked at me in surprise when I laughed, so I had to explain why, which neither of them found to be amusing at all. In fact, the young woman seemed somehow offended, and they soon moved away from the strange character who not only eavesdropped, but also laughed at them. The sad thing about it all was that the attractive young woman belongs to that vast army whose members make it their business to spend their lives focusing on the wrong things. I'll bet if the young man gave her a string of pearls, she'd busy herself with a minute inspection of the clasp. On a beautiful day, such people can spot that tiny cloud on the horizon. They don't appreciate the good qualities in people, but complain about their defects. If their children bring home report cards with 5 B's and 1 C, it's the C that'll get the comments and the attention. They don't look for what's right, but what's wrong. In a world of miracles and beauty, they see only horse droppings. If you mention this to them, they'll usually say, "You have your head in the sand," and they have it all backwards. There's nothing in the world that's perfect, and it's our job to eliminate as many defects as we can.